What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for January 19th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Friday edition, Feel Good Friday. Unfortunately, not a football Friday, but I digress. Hard to believe we're almost 20 days into January already. Today was weigh-in day. I am down officially 10 pounds since the start of the year. Combination of working out, counting calories, and dry January. The key is going to be once February 1st comes and how we maneuver that. But I told you I'd keep you up to date on my 51 pounds by the end of the year journey. Off to a good start, and that's the whole point. I wanted to get off to a decent start and then kind of just roll with that as we go through. I did want to give a shout out to the early morning gym and workout crew. Same crew at the gym every morning between 4 and 5 when I get there, as well as when I'm walking outside, running outside. I see the same people walking, running, same thing like that. Not to say there's anything wrong if you go to the gym later. I'm not saying that, but it's just it's a different breed to get up when it's freezing cold outside, it's dark, and it's easier to stay in bed. So shout out to you, early morning riser workouts. All right, so as we always do, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. We were talking about the Sixers trade deadline and whether or not they should stand pat or make a trade. I did ask the caveat, what would you trade for? And 86% of you said, yes, we should make a trade. And nobody offered up any specific players, which is fine. But the general consensus was, do it if it makes sense to make the team better. I think at least half of that 86% that did more than just vote said that's what they need, like a role player, because it is Joe and Tyrese's team, and you need people that are going to be able to fit in there. And ultimately, that has been what the Sixers' issue has been since Joe's been there. They haven't been able to find the right person to kind of complement. Although, if you ask me, they did. They let him go in favor of Ben Simmons, but I digress. But again, I think everybody is kind of on the same page. If it makes the team better, go for it. If not, stand pat, worry about the health. And then you guys, we're in a great situation in this offseason between cap space and just assets and maneuverability. I was reading something, I didn't really understand it. It's like cap management, but I guess there's a second level of salary cap. I don't know whether it was like a ceiling or the luxury tax threshold or whatever. And some people, I guess it's new in the new CBA, and some teams are not going to be able to hang on to people the way they were. So that actually might bode well for the Sixers too. There might be like a secondary level of players who aren't necessarily free agents that might become available due to whatever this salary cap. I don't know. When it comes to salary cap stuff, I get confused. To me, I have a budget, and if I stick to this budget, that's what I do. But there's so many loopholes and things like that it really does get confusing. But the Sixers are in a good spot with whatever this new piece of the CBA is to maybe snag a couple players that you wouldn't think were available. So more on that, I guess, as we go. I'm anxious to see 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks before the trade deadline. A little over 3, I guess. It's February 14th, Valentine's Day. So I think that's kind of the first domino to drop, and then we can start focusing on the offseason. But as always, thank you for reaching out, participating in the voice and text line. Love to get more voicemails. Text, people are really taking advantage of the text and messaging me that way. Would love to play some of your voicemails. So 267-495-8531 gets you in on the voice and text line. Working on a name for it. So if you have any suggestions, I do have an idea. I just haven't had time to sit down and think about it. But let me know. Also, while you're at it, go to my YouTube, Jimbo_Mont, and subscribe. Trying to get those subscribers up over 100. All kinds of things open up as far as expanding this thing. So get on there. If you're watching it, I know people are watching it because I can see it. I know we have way more than 100 people watching on YouTube. So just while you're watching, just hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on a podcast, hit the subscribe button. Let's try to grow this thing and make it something. Finally, last little housekeeping note, and I almost didn't do this, but this is our first foray into this, and I'm realizing some of these moms are they bring their A game and take this shit very, very serious. It's Girl Scout cookie time. Now, some of you I know have girls who sell Girl Scout cookies as it is. But like when there are moms who sold 50 boxes yesterday and it was the first time, I'm like, all right, Ella, I got you. I'm pulling out the heavy artillery. So if anybody is interested in buying Girl Scout cookies, hit me up offline. We can set something up. I can make sure you can get it. But these moms are relentless, and we got to try to. It's going to take all of us to defeat these moms that are selling 50 boxes of cookies in one day. So come on. If you want some Girl Scout cookies, think of me. Come to me first. Whether it's your Samoas, the Thin Mints, or my favorite, the peanut butter patties, let me know. We got to, listen, let's take these moms down. With like 50 boxes on the first day. Come on, man. There's definitely some tampering going on there. So let's get it going. Let's beat the soccer moms. Let's show them what this day in Philly sports history is all about. But in all seriousness, if you're interested in Girl Scout cookies, hit me up offline. Anything you could do to help would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, man, listen, this is all hands on deck. I almost came on here with war paint ready to go. These moms, man, they take their Girl Scout cookies serious. So let's see what we can do. All right, moving back to sports. What a game for the Flyers last night. I mean, I've been telling you all season, now's the time to get in on the ground level. And that was a huge win. Like, I know I say that all the time, big win, huge win. That was like an excellent win for them against a good team with a good goaltender. The power play was working. The defense, like, they shut down Dallas. Like, Dallas had like one shot on goal, I think, in the first period, and only like 7 through 2 periods. Like, this Flyers team is legit, guys. I have to say. I mean, 5-1 win over Dallas, who's a good team. This is their 5th straight. I mean, if you saw Lawton's penalty shot, like, it was just phenomenal. And I mean, and if you didn't watch the game and you haven't seen this yet, go look it up. Owen Tippet's breakaway goal, probably one of the best goals of the year so far. Went on a break, did a spin move, and then backhanded it to the far top shelf. The building was rocking yesterday. It's a good time to be a Flyers fan. And every time we're ready to write them off and think, okay, this is where they're going to come back down to earth and be who we thought they were, they go on a run like this. And I mean, Dallas is one of the better teams in the Western Conference. So huge win for the Flyers. I'm telling you, go check out Tippett's goal. It was just phenomenal. It was like NHL 94 type, like backhand. It was just, go check it out. They are in action. They got back-to-back games at home this weekend against Colorado and Ottawa, so good test. Would love to see them win at least one of them and get points in both. They are in a battle right now in the Metro Division with the Rangers. They're 2 points behind. They're 4th overall in the Eastern Conference. We haven't done a standings update in a while. But like I said, every time they start falling off and we think that they're nowhere to be found, all of a sudden here they come back and they do it like in fashion like this. Like, that was just... Like, it was dozing in and out, or dozing off in and out, watching some of this shit. But, man, it was... What a game. Sixers back in action tonight down in Orlando. They're going to miss all the snow against the Magic. We haven't updated their standings in a while. They're currently the 3 seed. They're 1 back of Milwaukee, 5 back of Boston, 2 up on Cleveland, and 2.5 up on the Knicks. And I think that's where kind of we're looking going into the trade deadline, because are they going to be able to compete? I think they can compete with Milwaukee, to be completely honest, unless, I mean, Milwaukee's probably still, I still give them a little bit of growing pains bringing in Dame. But I think with where they are, they can compete with Milwaukee. It's Boston, and Boston just has so much depth, and that to me is what if you're going to make a trade for the Sixers, you need guys that you can trust coming off the bench like Boston has. And the other thing with it is the whole mental thing with Boston and Joe. It just cannot seem to get over the hump. So excited to see where the next 3 weeks or so go and what we're looking at with the Sixers. But they're in action tonight. Great win for the Flyers. I'm telling you, get in on the ground level. Go check out that goal too. And the Wells Fargo Center seemed like it was rocking pretty good for hockey, which we haven't seen it rocking like that for hockey in a long time. So kudos to the Flyers. All right, Eagles news. Brian Johnson has another interview with lined up, this time with the Falcons. And again, I really hope this all the stuff and the collapse aside, I really hope that this is because they want him and not just so they're checking off the box with the Rooney Rule. But don't necessarily want to get into all of that right now. But I hope for his sake. But with all these interviews, and if it is the Rooney Rule, that's completely screwed up. But if it is for him, it leads me to believe then there is a disconnect between Sirianni and Brian Johnson. Like, is Sirianni... does he have his hands too much in the offense and not letting Brian Johnson do what he wants to do? And is Brian Johnson taking the blame for Sirianni, a la what Doug Peterson did for Andy Reid, kind of falling on the sword? I don't know. It's worth keeping an eye on because, like I said, I pray and hope that this is not just a Rooney Rule thing so they can check off the box. But speaking of Sirianni, he has his meeting today with Jeffrey Lurie. Lurie was so disgusted, I guess, with the end of the season. He went down to the Cayman Islands and said, Nick, you can wait. But my thoughts on this, I got a couple things. So, the thought is, let me stop and go back for a minute. Basically, he's going to meet with him and present his plan for the Eagles moving forward. And I guess if they like the plan, and this is what they're reporting. To me, it doesn't make any sense. I feel because of the way the coaching search and hiring of coaches go, I feel that at this point, if they were to fire him today, they would be behind where they need to be. So this, to me, barring something crazy happening and them saying, Nick, this is what we need from you, and Nick saying F off, I'm not doing that, kind of like what Doug Peterson did, Nick's going to be back this year. I think it's more just the formality because the exit interview for the head coach does have to happen with the owner. It would completely make sense. And I think the timing of it just reeks of they're going to keep him, give him the shot. They're going to drop the news probably this afternoon, the Friday afternoon news dump. I do it all the time with stuff I have to do at work. I call it the 3:50 news dump. Every day ends at 4. If anything kind of controversial, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, a lot of times I'll send it out 3:50, 3:55, so that way I can deal with it on Monday. I have a feeling this is ultimately what's going to end up happening with Nick. And again, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I've told you that yesterday. I think give him a chance to make it right, because if it was just certain pieces of this collapse, I could say, yeah, blame it on Nick. But this, everybody. And the players, unless they're just BSing, and you got guys like Fletcher Cox, who might not even be here, Jason Kelsey, who's retired, coming out in support when they don't have to, I think it kind of leads me to believe that he didn't lose the locker room, and I still cannot get over what Dallas Goedert said about them sort of overlooking teams. And if that is the truth, that's on the players. That's not the coach. That's what's inside of you. So we'll know more. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about this tomorrow, but hopefully we get some news on this and it doesn't drag out longer, because especially if they are going to fire him, they should have done it already. But I completely forgot about this too, and I saw some people on Twitter, they were talking about James Bradberry. Completely forgot that the Eagles signed Isaiah Rodgers, who was cut and then suspended, then cut, or somehow with the Colts for betting on football games. Young cornerback. that has a lot of potential to sort of fit in, and completely forgot they have him signed for next year. So it could be something that helps us out. But I also think, too, when you're looking at the Nick Sirianni thing, and I keep going back to this, but they suffered a lot of injuries this year. And, I mean, last year they were relatively healthy. And, I mean, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they had Vontae Maddox was out for most of the season. They lost Nakobe Dean. The guys they brought in for linebacker, that's on Howie. But, like, guys like Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham, like, those weren't guys they really wanted to have to play a lot. Unfortunately, they did due to injuries. I do think that falls on Howie, and it's the whole organization for years now, 20-plus years, that they don't necessarily put any stock in linebackers. But I think, I mean, you're going to have to this year. So I'm anxious to see what – it's going to be a big offseason. We'll leave it at that. I do have to say the last thing then is Darius Slay spoke about the defensive coordinator switch, and he was like, it's like being in two marriages, and each one had different wants, and it was hard for them to focus, which I do think that the switching to defensive coordinator the way they did was terrible. What I am going to call some of the people in the media out on, though, and this is just where it goes back to some of the things that we talked about, especially with Marcus Hayes. But, like, a lot of these people that are calling for Nick Sirianni to be fired and bitching about the job he did were the same ones 6-7 weeks ago who were saying we need to fire Sean Desai. I mean, you can probably go back and look it up on Twitter accounts and archives on Philly.com and things like that. So, like, you got to kind of take a step back. A lot of these same people were the ones saying they need to do something with the defensive coordinator. And so it's just sometimes it's just ironic to me that the same people that are calling for him to get fired because of the way he handled the situation that they were saying that he should have done. So that's why you let Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and the guys down at the NovaCare complex handle it, and don't listen to the fans and the media, because there are some times where we know what we're talking about as fans, but then sometimes you gotta kind of not react with emotion, and that's the fan is short for fanatic. And if you're fanatical about something, you're acting a lot of times with emotion, and I am 100% guilty of this too. So it's just I wanted to point that out, because a lot of the same people that are calling for Nick Sirianni to be fired because of the way he handled the defensive coordinator position were the same ones that not only were calling for it but applauded it when it happened. But we'll see. And finally, Eagles, rest in peace to Norm Snead. He was the Eagles quarterback from 64 to 70. Unfortunately, played on some pretty bad teams. Did make a Pro Bowl in 1965. Played for a few teams, had some success in other Pro Bowl years. But RIP to Norm Snead. Condolences to your family. Eagles quarterback from 1964 to 1970. All right, so now to go on a little bit more of an upbeat before we go back into the disappointment, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Go to PhillyGoat.com for all your Philly sports apparel needs. I'm telling you, get your Flyers gear now. Last night, I've been telling you that that's the team that we're seeing. So get your Quakers sweatshirt that was inspired by our podcast. Get your Flyers shirt. Pitchers and catchers start February 14th. That's going to be a big day. Pitchers and catchers, as well as the NBA trade deadline. So let's start believing. And I talked to you yesterday about Johan Rojas being jacked. I may have gotten a little overzealous with the 24-inch pythons. But, I mean, look it up. Dude is jacked. Wearing that Believe shirt that you can get at PhillyGoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's PhillyGoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for all your Philly sports apparel needs, as well as that Believe shirt. I'm telling you, you got to believe. You got to believe. All right. On this day, back in 2003, we're just going to continue the Eagles' disappointment train today. This whole week has been nothing but disappointment. The Eagles played in the NFC Championship game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Started off good enough. Brian Mitchell returned the opening kick 70 yards to deep into Tampa territory. 2 plays later, Deuce Staley ran for 20 yards out, and that place was shaking. The vet was shaking, literally shaking. I ended up 4 or 5 rows back, and I have no idea how I got there because the place just was nuts. Where our seats were, we were in between the fan divisions. The one fan division said, from here, you can kind of see San Diego. We all thought we were going, and it was an advertisement for something. I forget what it was. But, man, we were all thinking we were going to go, and it was all downhill basically from there. I think what gets lost a lot in that Tampa game is the Eagles were only down 17-10 at halftime, and right before the half they were driving, but McNabb fumbled the ball, and that really kind of crushed the momentum, and it was something that they never came back from. They fumbled again in the third quarter, and that was sort of it. The defense tightened up a lot. The Eagles did try to mount a comeback late, but then stinking Rondé Barber returned the pick 6 with under 4 minutes left while the Eagles were driving deep inside Tampa territory, going to try to make it a 7-point game. Or I guess it would have been a 3-point game at that point, 20-17. But, I mean, speaking of bad linebacking play in part helped us lose that game. Levon Kirkland was just shot at that point. Bad safety play. Blaine Bishop was shot at that point. And it just one of the worst live sporting events I've ever experienced. One of my worst Eagles experience ever. Last game at the Vet and walking out of there, just how quiet it was. And everybody was afraid, Philly's still got to play one more season. They're going to rip the seats. No, everybody was just shocked. I think it was just we thought we were winning that. We thought we were going to the Super Bowl. We should have gone to the Super Bowl. We should have won that game and would have beaten the Raiders. And I know my buddy Kenny King's out there listening. Sorry, buddy. We would have beat your Raiders that year. And it just was not meant to be. Just one of the worst experiences as an Eagles fan ever. But that leads, might as well wallow in our misery, leads to today's question of the day. In the past 25 years, the Eagles have had a lot of disappointing ends to the seasons, including this one. But this season aside, in the past 25 years, what was the most disappointing finish to an Eagles season? Was it this 2002 NFC Championship game? Was it the one we talked about yesterday against the Panthers, the 2003 NFC Championship game? Was it the end of Super Bowl 39, or was it just last year's Super Bowl 57? Let me know, which is the most disappointing end to an Eagles season in the past 25 years. 267-495-8531. Send a text message, leave a voicemail. Let me know your thoughts. But biggest disappointing in the past 25 years, end to a season, this season aside, the 02 NFC Championship game, the 03 Super Bowl 39 or Super Bowl 57. For my money, it is and probably always will be this NFC Championship game against the Buccaneers, which happened on this day in 2003. Buccaneers punched their ticket to the Super Bowl 27-10 over the Eagles. Finally today, our free agent who had a fresh start in Philly, Troy Vincent, signed with the Eagles in 1996 for a homecoming. The Pennsbury High graduate came back home to play for his hometown Philadelphia Eagles. He was a first-round pick out of Wisconsin and was solid his first 4 years in the league for the Dolphins, but really came into his own under Ray Rhodes and playing for the Eagles. Quickly became one of the best cornerbacks in the league. All told, he played 8 years in Philly, five-time Pro Bowler, 5 in a row from 99 to 2003. First team All-Pro in 2002. Second team All-Pro the year before in 2001. Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2002. One of 3 Eagles to win it, along with Harold Carmichael and Chris Long. Led the league in interceptions in 1999. He's on the Eagles' All-75th anniversary team, the Eagles Hall of Fame, Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, 28 interceptions, 10 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries, and to boot, he shares in the longest interception return for a touchdown in Eagles history with James Willis, and Troy Vincent actually did most of the legwork. James Willis intercepted the pass down in Dallas, returned it 14 yards, and then Troy Vincent did the other 90 for the touchdown. Currently, he is the executive vice president of football operations for the NFL, so he went corporate on us, like corporate Kane in the old WWE days. But today's free agent who had a fresh start in Philly is hometown hero Troy Vincent, who was a Pennsbury High graduate, came home and really had the best years of his careers with the Eagles. Played in that 2002 NFC Championship game. Unfortunately, that the Eagles lost on this day back in 2003. The game happened in 2003. It was for the 2002 season. In case I had a couple people comment on me about learn my dates, but it was for the 2002 season. So just relax. Anyway, but yeah, Troy Vincent, today's free agent who had a fresh start in Philly. On this day back in 2003, the Eagles lost the NFC Championship game 27-10. If you're looking for a way to get rid of your disappointment on the ending of this Eagles season, check out my boys over the Clashing Conferences podcast. They did a nice little recap on the playoffs, a playoff edition of their podcast. And you'll see the difference between Eagles fans and Cowboy fans and Giants fans, for that matter, and how they view the season. And say what you want about Eagles fans, they're realistic and they know what they want. They're not delusional. And yes, I will use that word if you watch the episode. The Cowboy fan and the Giant fan are delusional about the chances of their teams. At least we're realistic. We might be delusional the other way, thinking we're worse than what we are, but at least we have some sort of basis of reality. But go check them out, the Clashing Conference podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Be sure to check out Philly Goat. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery. Get your Believe shirt so you can be jacked like Johan Rojas. Great win for the Flyers. I'm telling you, look up Tippett's goal. It was phenomenal. Sixers in action tonight. Be sure to hit me up for the question of the day, 267-495-8531. Most disappointing end to an Eagles season in the past 25 years, this year aside. 02 NFC Championship game, 03 NFC Championship game, Super Bowl 39 or Super Bowl 57. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get them up over 100. Let's take down these soccer moms. Buy your Girl Scout cookies from Ella. Let me know. We'll make it work, but we got to take these soccer moms down. So let's do it. Be safe out there if you're driving. Going to get another, looks like 3 to 6 inches of snow today. So be safe. Enjoy it. Have some hot chocolate. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.